And it'll do the weird thing where it'll be recording this without telling us, so I have to pause it before it starts playing in the background and driving me bonkers. Morning, Ernest.
Good morning.
All right. So I have a particular way I'd like to frame this conversation, if you'll indulge me for a bit, and we can discuss that before we dive into it. The prompt that I shared with you all was, how do we stop toxic LLMs from taking over the world? And I thought to focus the discussion, I would like to make it personal, in that I would love to have a natural language way to query the Datocracy corpus, right? You and I have been having these conversations for years now, Ernest, about humankind, Datocracy in the last year with Tom, and there's this rich body of conversation, which no sane person is going to listen to all of it straight through. Maybe a graduate student here or there if they have to, and we become important, but like, this is really interesting and important context. And so the hypothesis I had, and again, feel free to tell me if this is a bad idea, but is that what I call a reliable Datocracy oracle, like a system of record where we can make conversations, like all the audio and video, everything we've incorporated, all the documents are digested. And that is a thing that naively appears to be a good use case for LLMs, but there are genuine concerns about, is that actually a good idea, and is there a better idea? And I thought that would be an interesting framing of our dialogue, is rather than trying to ask, like, because we said, like, certainly some narrow use cases, LLMs are clearly useful. Certainly in certain cases, they're incredibly, horribly toxic. But this feels like a good concrete use case somewhere in the middle that we could have a focused discussion on. And, the question is sort of this, this is sort of the way I wanted to frame the question. Does that work for you, Ernest?
What do you mean by what do you mean by, what is your definition of toxic LLM?
Okay, that's good. Let's start there, right? So let's define toxic as opposed to reliable, right? So toxic LLMs are misaligned interests, hallucinatory responses, I guess overconfident hallucinatory responses. So I'll start with those. Those are the two things that I think of that makes LLMs particularly toxic.
That to me is confusing, because an LLM is just a tool. It's just like a weapon. Let's say an LLM is or a sewing machine is just a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
The misalignment goes in the entity who is using it. So it's not the LLM. It's not the AI. We keep referring to these things as like they have agency. No, it's just software. It's just code. It's data. It's a tool. So the misalignment is not in the tool. It's in the user of the tool. It's in it's in OpenAI. It's in Microsoft. It's in Apple. It is not in the technology. That's what I want to separate. The technology is fine, but the way that people use the technology.
Okay, so this is good. So this is, maybe there's a point of confusion, or maybe your thoughts have changed. So but so let me ask the very concrete question. So I think that there is a way to use LLM technology to do two things, and the proposed use case, and if we are in agreement about this, then great, is to digest large unstructured media. So using an LLM type tool, or maybe an LLM a more moderate language model, into queryable form, and then interact, provide natural language interface for querying. So I would like, and actually this is something I would actually concretely propose, is that we find a values aligned LLM technology, and when it's ready, which may be weeks, maybe a year or two, I don't know, we turn it on against our entire corpus of the Datocracy history, and then we provide a, let's be more blunt, right, a chat GPT-like interface for querying, so that people could ask this system, hey, what does Ernest Bruce think about this topic? And what is Datocracy's position on X? And the system would say, well, based on these conversations and these documents, this is what is the Datocracy perspective on this issue. And I think that LLM technology, or a suitable variant of that, would be there. And my impression was that that made you very uncomfortable, and I wanted to explore that.
And it still does. Like
okay,
in the model of what is understanding, what is knowledge, we have, what is it? We have data, we have information, and then we have insight, knowledge, and something like that.
yeah.
So in when it comes to this LM, I see it as just a way to collect data and information so that it can be searched, but it's not like it's not knowledge, because knowledge implies reasoning, and it implies being able to have to produce insight out of your corpus of knowledge. But the giving the LLM the capacity to produce knowledge, I think that's wrong.
So
okay,
so that's okay.
The part that to make text queryable, yes, but it has to be accurate. Like you said, the hallucinations that should stop. If he has conflicting knowledge, then it should say, oh, according to the corpus of knowledge of the corpus of data and meaningful data that I have, these are two or three possibilities to your answer, but not just invent. Like, this is what we have seen a lot, right? The LLM invents an answer, and then it justifies it so well that people say, oh yeah, no, the LLM shouldn't invent. And I've seen that some LLMs are trying to, okay, they come up with an answer, and then they kind of like analyze it. Is this answer correct? So in that sense, they're kind of like evolving to becoming better. But we're still not there. And one very, very important point, and this is my whole thing, is that in the internet, with the entities that use it, Facebook or Microsoft, whatever, they want to, or this is what I see, they want to present an AI as a human being, right? We've seen that with Google, and we've seen it. So that, to me, that's wrong. If I'm dealing with a person, if I go to a service and WhatsApp, whatever, I want to be sure that I'm dealing with a human being, that it is impossible for a bot to pretend that to be a human being. So I'm reading about proof of humanity
Mhm.
There's the framework or project that you join, and some human being has to vouch for you. Yes, I know this person. This is a human, and is real. So that's a way to guarantee that you're dealing with humans, and so that's the main thing. You know, from there are other issues, but the main issue is in this world, in this digital world, people should know when they are dealing with an AI based agent and when they are dealing with a human being, and that should be clear. And these the deep fakes and all those things, that is where AI can be used for ill, or is used for ill. Is actually right now, we use it for ill. They try to deep fake Putin and all these Biden. Uh, and because we're humans, because we can do it, we will do it, right? Or we, when I say we, as I said, these people with all this computing power, and they see all these possibilities to manipulate people, so they're going to use that to that objective, and we have to be able to protect people from that use.
Right.
That
So when we say we have to protect people, right, I assume you're not saying we should launch nuclear strikes against data centers the way a few people have suggested. This is not
no.
okay, right? We're not talking about so this is good, right? So what we mean is that we need to create a compelling alternative that outcompetes. How about the phrase toxic use of LLMs? Because it's not so much the LLMs themselves, but the way that it is actually able to be used and being used for these toxic ways. Is that a fair phrase?
Uh, yeah, like if you have it's like having a gun with a fingerprint uh, sensor, so that it can be fired only by the owner.
Mhm.
And if people familiarize themselves with such a weapon, then they can be sure that, oh, it's registered to earners. Only earners can fire it. And if somebody else has it, if some child gets a hold of it, he won't be able to be fired. If we, and let's say the gun, not going to happen, but gun manufacturers adopt that, like they drop their stupid reasoning for not doing it, but they actually do it for all guns produced that are not for military use. You have to have a fingerprint sensor. At that, and if we, after some time, all the guns will have that. Then people are sure that, oh, a kid is not going to fire it, because no kid is able to register the fingerprint. So
Okay.
it's the
So
same thing with LLM.
okay. So sorry. Okay. This is a good point. So we agree that LLMs are the problem. It's the toxic use of LLMs that are the problem. And it sounds like your preferred solution is some sort of supply side regulation, right? Is
Uh,
that
well,
because that's what you're doing. That's the analogy. Okay, maybe that's not. That was the analogy you used, where like the manufacturers all agree to do this fingerprinting thing.
mhm.
So if that's not the case, then that's good. Let me understand what it is.
Oh, um, he says so. So repeat your answer. I mean,
So you see, like we understand that toxic use of LLMs is a grave concern. And the example you use of, requiring gun manufacturers to provide traceability is sort of a voluntary or government regulation. The producers agree to abide by certain standards,
yes.
right?
Mhm.
Right. And so I can, politically, it's hard to imagine that happening, but technically, I can easily imagine how that could be decided and enforced either as a government level or as a voluntary industry standard, right? Um, because it's physical hardware and large central facilities that produce these things. It is difficult for you to imagine where, so in a world where it was only, OpenAI and Google producing LLMs, or only large corporations like Facebook or whatever, I can imagine that scenario working. But given that LLMs are software and the source for them is readily available, it's not legally open source, it's hard to imagine any sort of voluntary or mandated standards prohibiting improper use of LLMs. Is it possible for you to imagine that?
Yeah, it is. People are gonna. I'm sure somebody's is working on biological weapons, even though there's
Well, but biological weapons have physical scarce resources, right? Is like if you want to actually create a super weapon, you need to create some sort of high level containment facility. I mean, so let's talk about the hierarchy of things, right? So nuclear weapons are it's not easy to stop nuclear proliferation, but it's somewhat possible, right? It's hard to get centrifuges, it's hard to get plutonium. You have these big facilities that people can track. Bioweapons are harder to track, right? Because they're smaller things, but there are still a physical presence. Like you need to have a now doing hypothetical experiments on DNA is fairly easy, right? That's pure software. Anyone can do it. But if you're actually going to build something in a lab and not kill yourself, you need to do certain physical things, and you can kind of track those things. But software is like, I mean, LLMs feel like encryption. Okay, that's probably the analogy. And like, as far as I know, it's impossible to prohibit people from using encryption, right? If people want to use encryption, it's just there. They're going to do it. And, in some ways, you can tell that a code is encrypted, but you can't tell it's being used improperly, right? If you may not even know what kind of encryption it is, and you don't know who's using it, how they're using it, how they're using it. And to me, LLMs feel like encryption, is that people can use it, and if enough people, and like, there's no way to stop people from using it, and there's no way to tell if people are using it, right?
And that to me, that's the problem. We have to. My vision is to have an environment like we have the internet, but then we have something on top of the internet where the core thing is humanity. You have to be a human, and you have to be traceable, and there's no anonymity. So, and that's a problem to some people.
Okay. So let's concede this existence of humane net, right? And that or did you have a better word for that? This humane net, which is sort of a subset of the internet, where it's
it's not
focused on.
Well, yeah, you pronounce it human net. It's not humane.
It is human net. Okay, human net. Okay, fine. Now,
like the human network.
Okay, are people allowed to use any device they own, or must they only use some sanitized devices that we certify participate in human net?
I see the only requirement should be that the device have a secure element, which is like a
secure enclave type of thing.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Well, that way, the device can be the person's ID. So
okay, so fine. So let me play that out. Let's assume that that's true, right? I can still record a deep fake on my other insecure computer and post it on HumanNet, and it's clear that I have responsibility for that thing, but you have no way of knowing what it is.
Well, but you have to be vouched for. Somebody has to vouch for you. So another part of the solution is a blockchain of these things.
So vouching for what? That I'm human?
Vouching that you are you.
Okay,
vouching
sure.
that you are human.
Sure, but if I'm a human and I decide to, okay, so, but of course, there's nothing to stop people in HumanNet from using, so is the real problem you had and let's play it out with this concrete use case, right? So say I have a Datocracy Oracle that I've set up. Okay, is there any reason I cannot provide that as a service on HumanNet?
Oh, well, that's an obvious tool. Like
Right.
if I use it, I access a tool called the Datocracy Oracle, then I know I can expect I can prepare my mind for what I'm about to see. I know that the knowledge comes from our conversations. I know that a tool is trying to go through all those and give meaning to words. And so I know that I know where the data comes from, and I know that it's being processed by some algorithm.
Okay,
But
so let me, okay, good. And I'll try and wrap up my piece here before and give Tommy, but let me give you a concrete example of what I imagine I would like to do, and that is possible today. Okay, so let's see if I got the right window here, because this is a little narky of an interface. Oh yeah, here it is. Let me just make this full screen here. So here is Bing on Microsoft Edge, possibly the first Microsoft product I've voluntarily installed on my computer in a decade. And here is the new Bing chat. And so when you ask it a question, it acts like a normal search engine, but over here, it gives you its chat GPT powered result, where it gives you a summary of, an answer to the question and footnotes to actual sources used that you can reference it. And the question is this use of LLMs consistent with your principles?
is the logo on top of on the right side
That's the Bing
an
logo.
indication? What does that say? What does that mean?
It means this is Bing chat. This is their branded thing. It's like, hey, this is Bing. This is Microsoft's LLM-based, quote unquote, artificial intelligence chatbot that is providing this answer. And so it's not pretending to be human, like this is a search engine.
That is an acceptable use, of course, because
Okay, great. So then the question, going back to my previous one, is that if I wanted to build this, this reliably, modeled after Bing Chat, would you have any objection to that?
Yes, but in another level. These are the level of I must be able to get to the source of whatever it is reasoning. Like I don't want to be in this situation where there's a bunch of parameters and we don't know what it's thinking. I don't want to have a black box. That's what I don't want to have a black box.
Okay, so so this is an interesting thing, right? Is so there's an interesting tension here, and I'll get myself right. And the issue there is sort of opaque, neural net parameters, black box on one hand, opaque, I don't know, opaque, versus a formal, I believe the technical term is a knowledge graph, right? Where information is rigorously encoded, like we've talked about these different systems where you, like RDF and, the things you showed where like, this is a verb, this is a noun,
yes.
Formal, human encoded knowledge graph.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And here's right. So this is the question, and I'll just stop with this. The question is that I guess there's two questions. Is can LLMs become explainable before knowledge graphs become efficient? Right? Because I think the thing that, whenever I look at these knowledge graphs, it's like I've seen like going through and listening to, like I said, I would not want to go back and listen to everything that we've said and written and recorded over the last 3 years. Like, it's just not going to happen. I would love to turn a machine loose to do that part for me. And the question is, like, how would you propose to solve that problem? Yeah, let's just leave it there.
Like I see that as okay, how would, if we throw humans at the problem, like we used to throw computers. By computers I mean the women who do calculations manually. We can say go through the transcripts of these conversations and index them by subject, date, and any other context that you think is important, but then also list those contexts so that we can, as a knowledge graph, we can enter that graph through, what have we said about the word that the Datocracy, what have we said about capitalism, so so that I know how it's organized. Yeah, I know that humans would organize that in I don't know, let's use the Dewey Decimal System or something. We can give them, organize it in this way so that I can myself confirm that it is done correctly, and that whatever the algorithm takes from it, I can put blame on, oh, you gave me the wrong answer. Where do you get your source? Where do you get your what you source? So, and he said, oh, it's because of this section of the graph. And then if I see that the graph is correct, then I can point to the algorithm. You are wrong. And we have to look at the algorithm and see why did it do that. But if it's encoded incorrectly, if the way that the information was organized is, okay, yeah, you said that this is the Datocracy, but no, what in that sense, what the speaker was really meaning was something else, not the Datocracy, but something else, and the encoding was incorrect. So I guess what I want to say is that we have to make sure that the encoding into the knowledge graph is always correct and it is verifiable. Like
right, well,
right
verifiable. You're right, verifiable. Well, forget. Okay, so this is. I'll let Tom, because I think he's got some thoughts on the chat, and he can probably handle this conversation piece. And I'm finished with my time anyway. Tom, did you want to share what you were saying in the chat, or did you want to go in a different direction?
Okay. No, what's in the chat's in the chat. It's just sort of remarks, but I would like to go to a different level. Because I think you're down there discussing the mechanics of something that itself isn't well defined, and you're making assumptions that we haven't really agreed on. For example, Ernest seems to trust humans more than computers, and we could start with both are equally untrustworthy, and humans have proven how untrustworthy they are in lying, cheating, subverting, without any help for computers. So anything about guaranteeing I'm dealing with a human is, for me, a non-starter. I'd almost rather deal with a computer that I had some guarantees had not been corrupted from a good state. We can just, that's a remark to this, verifying humans. I think we need to go up to a higher level, and it's I've sent you the my talk on AI quality. Sent the links. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I opened it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what we've done there is said there are a number of recognized attributes of, that's it, recognized attributes of AI systems that can tell you if it's good or evil. Okay, and we can begin with the one of them, which is recognized both in the IEEE standards and in the universities and IBM advising the White House example, is the idea of transparency, which simply means can we tell exactly how the computer arrived at any conclusion? You know, can we track and trace it? And let's just say that you have a perfect transparency, call it 100%, meaning no matter what it does, we can track and trace and know exactly how it did it and what data it used, and what logic it used. Now, and in a sense, once you can do that, the system is auditable and it's more trustworthy. Let's just say you had 0% transparency. Even the creators of the software say they have no idea how it did it. And of course, as you know, they've said that. Then we have an untrustworthy system. We have you know, we can't trust it at any level. Anything can come out of it. Now that's just one of about 10 different parameters or qualities, and I give it just as an example. So I believe this at a higher level, and that's what this talk is about, that if we want to control AI systems or any other systems, even purely human ones, there's a way of doing it by identifying the qualities that indicate whether it's good to go or dangerous, you know, good or evil, and making them measurable. And then we should be able to measure any system and decide, at least publicize, for example, the level of known transparency. People can make their own minds up if they want to play with the system or not. But we might also have laws and regulations, like you're not allowed to sell to the public a system having lower than 99% transparency. That would, and then you can use the measure to enforce the law. Okay. Long story short, that I believe is one reasonable approach to the question you posed, which was how are we going to control that these systems are used for good or evil?
Well, I have issues with that whole thing, starting with a definition of what's good and evil, because that's, you know,
is that in your slide somewhere, Tom? How your definition of good and evil?
Not exactly good and evil. It's the definition of things like transparency all over the place. Okay. You go further down there.
Okay, we can stay with transparency.
And we can say bad transparency is evil.
Okay, human benefit, responsibility, transparency. Is that
okay? I would stay with, yeah. I would stay away from terms like good and evil and just say effective transparency, or you know,
good,
non-effective. Or ethical, I guess, is kind of what you're doing here, right? There's
this is
ethical standards.
Yeah, this is an interesting slide because it's the IEEE ethics committee trying to determine a standard for ethics. And notice number one, human benefit. I mean, straight on. And by the way, I'm in direct contact with the people who are doing this.
And but sorry, just so I'm clear, was this a positive example of an attempt to define these things? Or
no, it's neither. It's an attempt to deal with it where they're halfway. They've arrived at the conclusion that they need to quantify, and they've stated it officially, but they haven't done it.
So they framed it, but they haven't defined it, maybe in some way.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. They realize they're halfway there. They're not all the way there. And my talk shows exactly how to do it. And I'm talking with these people who are doing this, and they agree with me. We just need to do the work together of quantifying so that it becomes an intelligible factor about which can help us understand good or evil.
Or ethical, at least, maybe, if we want to use a weaker term.
Yeah, take your choice.
Okay,
That's
so
what they're
I guess,
using.
right. So what I'm understanding is that Tom's proposing a framework for that it's possible to define what ethical AI is, and that the problem is not in some ways different or even uncoupled from the problem of like, how do you trust humans? And
Yes.
that
I
if you
think
do
it's the same problem. I don't think whether a human or a computer there makes a whole lot of difference in testing. Can we trust it?
Right. There is a difference in that, right? Like the vouching piece, I think is important to Ernest. Like, is that I want to know, and you know, the current so vouchability is something that is not obvious on this list, which I think is something that is important. But like, it's true. If I vouch for a friend or I vouch for how I trained this AI, it's sort of the same thing. Or
Well, take a look at number 2, responsibility. Is a
is that defined
human
somewhere?
responsible, or it's number 2 in the IEEE ethics thing?
Okay, but what does responsibility mean, I guess?
Well, to be honest, I don't know exactly, but it could mean, is a machine responsible? Are the programmers of the machine responsible? Is a human responsible? You know, I haven't gone there with that, but I just say
Okay.
that that could, you know, I think, I think that might be in that area of, you know, vouching for a human. Or,
Okay.
by the way, who's going to vouch for the voucher?
Right. Okay. Anyway, I think Ernest is thinking. Let me give him a moment so he can digest and respond.
Yeah, I think we are mixing so many things together that is difficult. Well, let me start with at the level of the agent, the what is it, Bard or ChatGPT. At that level, you know, forget a human, just as a tool to manage data. I could say, if it's transparent, if I can see the source, like the knowledge graph that were from what is using that is using to make its inferences, if I can see that, if it's not a black box, then I wouldn't say I can. I would say I would assume that the responses that it gives me, I can, if I think they're wrong, I can go back, I can go and check his work.
So there's two different things. I'm hearing two very different things, Ernest, and maybe and I'm confused, or maybe they're different things. I'm not sure. One is that, like, what Edge today does, right, is it cites its sources, right? So it is verifiable. You know, Bing claims that these things are true. If I doubt it, I can go in and check those sources and see whether they've actually inferred things properly, right? So I'm checking the result. What I feel like you're asking for is, I want to verify the process that it came to. And what I hear Tom saying is that actually, in general, we can never verify the process when we're dealing with other humans. All we can do is ask them to show their work.
Problem. That's the problem. I see a complete separation. I know Tom says that it's the same. I see no. If you're dealing with a human, you're dealing with a human. If you're dealing with a machine, dealing with a machine. And you have to know what you are dealing with. And you cannot put those things together. You cannot say, it's like there's a girl on TikTok who created a chat-based GPT, a chat-based agent based on her, that people can access, and they pay $1 for a minute. So she created.
They know, right? They know
exactly.
that it's a fake.
They know that, and that's fine.
So that offends you, but like, it's not like, is it unethical, or is it just sick?
No, the fact that she did that it's okay, but she's saying, hey, this is not me, this is my
right.
my agent
avatar,
right?
Yeah.
So people know that, but we know that, you know, some states, some companies, whatever, they would do that to represent humans, and that's how you would
sorry. I think there's two different things that we're confusing. One is that impersonation is wrong, right? If I'm impersonating another human, that's wrong. If another person is pretending to be, or if I pretend to be a doctor and I'm not, right? Pretending, so we can agree that impersonation is wrong, and we shouldn't ignore the difference. What we're saying is that if I meet, is that the criteria I use when I'm dealing with a human, when I'm dealing with an expert, when I'm dealing with a computer or a chatbot, is that I don't expect, I can say, hey, walk through your, tell me your sources and walk through your reasoning. And that is how we verify it. And then we can also say, let me see your track record. Have you passed the bar exam, right? What are your credentials? Like all those things that we apply to humans to decide if they're trustworthy. I think Tom is arguing we can use those same techniques in the absence of complete transparency, which is kind of a myth and kind of impractical. It's actually better to focus on verification of, I guess, both the instantaneous, reasoning and sources, and also the track record of training and certification. And that if we do that, there's no harm in having non-impersonating AI providing answers just like humans do.
Like having an image of a fabricated image of a human that it is not human, but we know that we're dealing with a.
I mean, sorry, if an AI creates a fake image versus a human creating a fake image, art forgers, right? People have been forging and counterfeiting for a long time. The fact that it's a human who's a devious liar versus a machine who's a devious liar, it's the same problem. Just knowing that they're a human by itself doesn't actually help you anything. It's like you still have to do the same authentication process of showing your work, showing your credentials in order to justify if someone is worth trusting. And not having anonymity impersonation is important, but that seems like the important thing.
And we have to have something like a blockchain of these things. Just like using in cryptocurrency, like there's a distributed database that is you cannot corrupt, because it would take a lot of computing power to do that. So we have this blockchain of things. Oh, Ernie vouch for me that I'm a human being, so it's in the blockchain. I say that I am for fairness. That one of my values is fairness. It's in a blockchain. And then I do something that is unfair to somebody else. And it's in the blockchain. Somebody can go back and say, oh, Ernest said that he's fair, he's for fairness, but he did this thing that is not fair. Therefore, one, he's not authentic because he's not practicing the things that he says he practices. He's not practicing the values that he espouses. And two, well, yeah, he's not authentic. And if somebody else is also for fairness, they can see that Ernest, as in me, claims to be fair, but acts in unfair ways. So yeah, what I'm saying is that we should blockchain most of our interactions, so that in that sense, whether you're a human or an agent, you can always go back to, okay, where did you start? Now, how did you get into the system? Oh, somebody wrote to you. Microsoft says, oh, this is a software agent that we developed and we are deploying it. Blah, it's right here in our system. Oh, this is a human being that we say human being. Like I said, we have a device with a secure element that we use a private key, public key, all these things to guarantee that once we flag this as a human being, you can trace that entity's actions. and
Right. What I'm hearing you arguing for is not so much blockchains, it's the idea of incorruptible accountability. The people
no, I'm it's blockchain.
okay, you want to believe in blockchain for that, fine. You know,
I guess
but,
implementation needed.
wait. The point is that like that seems independent of whether the entity in question is a human or an AI. Like I care about how they were trained, I care about how consistent they are, and I care about, you know, at some point there is some financial or reputational thing at stake, right? You know, one thing that proof of humanity gives you is proof of stake in that sense, like I have a reputation tied to my identity that's very expensive if I lose it. Having to recreate a new physical identity is very hard. And so proof of humanity is a good way to show a proof of stake. But, you know, a corporation has something similar, right? If Microsoft creates an account and says, this is my account that is the official voice of Microsoft, you know, that's a pretty high proof of stake too. It's a different proof of stake, but it's still a meaningful one, right? And saying that I, as a vendor, want to provide services to HumanNet, and I want to certify this tool, like that feels like that. But I'm kind of hearing that if we take away anonymity and impersonation, you don't have a fundamental rational reason for against people using LLMs. You know, as long as that play by the same rules as humans do. You may dislike them, but you don't really have a rational reason against it.
No, as long as we know, hey, you're dealing with an LLM or
Yeah.
an AI. You're not dealing with a human. Yeah.
As long as we take it. Okay, so let me go back to my question. I would like to kick off a project to try and find an LLM that can go, or a foundation model, some sort of AI type of technology that could go through the Datocracy corpus, all of our videos and audio, and create a clearly labeled, you know, Bing chat-like interface. And you know, Seth Godin, by the way, already has this, right? He has his own little personal chat bot, and you say, like, what does Seth Godin believe about this? And it says, well, Seth Godin believes this, and here's the links to the podcasts and the blogs where he said these things. And you know, that is a really useful thing that is very efficient to do. And you know, would you have an objection to me doing that as long as it's clearly labeled?
No, that you know, that's, I think we started all these conversations with something like that. You remember the document, the smart document thing. It is essentially that, like, you have a document and you can use it as a database from which to get knowledge.
Right. And the point is that rather than me or you or some army of minions slaving away to manually encode all that in some formal knowledge graph, what if we could use LLM technology or deep foundation models, whatever, to scrape that in a way that's annotated, you know, and such that when you ask it a question, it gives you a synthesis that's coherent and cites its sources.
Yeah.
Okay, so as long as the result is fine, if it happens to be encoding its interim representation as these black box probabilistic weights, as long as it is auditable after the fact, that's good enough. Okay, sorry, Tom.
Just a fun remark. What I'd like is a second competitive or independent AI system which read the output and told me whether I could trust it.
So you're gonna trust a tool to tell you whether you trust a tool?
Let's actually play this out, because what you do is you have, and this is how computer security works, is you have a really large complex system, like your code base, and then you have a test suite, which is simpler and more transparent, which verifies the accuracy of it. And the idea is that you have simpler and simpler systems that you're trusting to vouch for the authenticity of more complex systems.
Something like that. We can. The point was independence of testing, rather than the system says, I'm being transparent. Here's where my sources are. How do I know it's forgetting some sources or corrupting them? I don't know. But
So
if I
even
had
independence is valuable. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So
as
we
usual.
so it's like
Independent
unit
auditors
testing.
is called.
So it's like unit
It's
testing for those systems.
yeah, sort of. It's like good forms of testing.
Yeah, but like audits, like and there's also the agency problem of motives. Is that the person? This is why you actually have QA. Is that engineers' motivation is to get something out the door, or the engineering, but the QA's manager to make sure it's reliable, and those are often intention. And that's why you usually have the engineering management and the QA management report into different parts of the organization if you can. Just like you have auditors who are independent of the corporation, their reputation, they have at stake something different. So there's different incentives, as well as
Yeah. I trust
simplicity.
independent auditing more than non-independent auditing.
Right. But I certainly trust transparent auditing even more than I trust independent auditing. Or maybe not, actually. It's a separate dimension.
Well, maybe we need a whole variety of tools to, like my talk is about 10 different things like transparency. So there are, if you like, I've got 10 tools for deciding whether
What were
I
those 10
trust an
things?
AI
I was trying to
system.
find your canonical somewhere.
If you bring up my slides again, they're towards the back. I mean, the beginning sort of introduces and simplifies by looking at one thing, but all
Can
10
you guess
of
a
them
slide
are,
number?
well, I have to bring up the slides then, which
We need an
takes a
AI to
moment.
go through your documents and summarize them so we
Yeah.
can find stuff. Oh, here we go. Are these your quantitative?
Okay, I can't, you need to,
I'm not sharing.
you
Did I stop
No, you're
sharing?
not
show
sharing.
me,
Okay.
yeah.
I need an AI to
There-
automatically share my screen for me. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good set. That's the set that was used for the White House in 2016.
Is there any more? Is there a better list?
No, that's a pretty good list, actually. Just the one on the left-hand side, forget everything else. Accountability, controllability, ethicality, privacy, robustness. That's a very good list. And by the way, a set of America's finest universities plus IBM in Japan, don't ask, probably the answer is Watson, put this together for a White House presentation to Obama about what's the status of AI. What they didn't do was define any of those things beyond an ambiguous sentence, which is
Right.
my criticism and what I'm trying to rectify.
And are you working on a Valplan language version of these?
That is Valplan you're looking at right now.
Okay, so you said this is right. You said right now it's here without definitions. So do you
Well,
have definitions
yes, and they're in the back of the slides here.
in the back here?
If you just keep on floating slides,
I only have 3 more slides.
Oh, you have the set without all the stuff at the end. Okay, I'll fix that. Sorry. That's to do a very short lecture with, and I intentionally in that PDF. What I'll do is I'll send the full set of slides directly. I'm sorry.
And maybe that's a good activity for next month's meeting, is to actually walk through that and see if
I'd be delighted.
that formalizes this. And that'll and if you send out advance, we can comment it, so much the better.
Yeah, I do apologize for not. That's for a
Even you can't keep track
talk.
of everything you write.
No, that was for a 15-minute talk. But I will send the full thing over, which has one slide with complete language Valplan for each one of the 10 to show it can be done.
Okay, and that'll give us a way to look at and see, because I think we surfaced a lot of areas of tension and agreement and concern, and it'll be to see if we can slot that into if your rigorous definitions are sufficiently comprehensive to capture those.
They are very comprehensive, but they're again, it's not like I've discussed it with 10 other people who want to argue with me. I've shown that it can be quantified. It can be structured. And here's an example.
Right.
That's
So we can
what's
stress test it.
going on there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you want, yeah, we would. By the way, I'm this week and last week, I'm working on a whole book on resilience of cyber systems. And I can share that with anybody who's interested, but that's what I'm doing. Similar topic. Okay, so AI quality. Okay. And so I need the master. And I'll check that the master really has all that stuff at the end. Pretty sure it does, but I'll check. Yeah, it has 85 slides, including, let's see, enough. End slide.
All right. Well, Tom's pulling it up. Ernest, any final thoughts or comments?
We have like 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's got the detail.
I can't summarize them in just a few sentences. But yeah, my main point is to always know when you're dealing with an AI and a human being, and when dealing with an AI, to make sure that it is, like Tom says, transparent, and you can make sure that it is reliable, that it is correct. So all these things are related.
Yeah.
But
will you consider our point that you also have to care about whether the human being is transparent?
so your mic is gonna.
Sorry. Would you also agree that it's not just when dealing with an AI that you want to make sure people are being transparent and reliable?
That is correct. Yeah. Everybody, like I said, a blockchain of things that you can verify. Like you can't just say, "Oh, I'm a financial genius, and you should trust me because I say so." No, you went to an institution that is, a known institution, college, whatever. You graduated, they gave you a certificate, and they put it in a blockchain. And therefore, you can say, "Yeah, you can't just produce a piece of paper that you can fake or whatever. It is in this blockchain that you can."
There's a whole question of like oracles. Like someone has to put some stuff in the blockchain. Who do you trust to put in the blockchain? Right, and then there is this whole chain of trust problem that you still get back to, which is why just saying blockchain doesn't magically make that problem go.
I mean, as long as hey, Ernest is human. Okay, boop. That's the origin. That's the origin.
But no, I mean, like you said, I get a diploma and I put it in the blockchain. Okay, people can, what if someone can forge the diploma? They can forge the entry to the blockchain, right? There's a chain of trust, and I can say that, okay, this person put it in there. Do I trust that person? Well, maybe. It depends on what I want to do, right? Someone could bribe the bursar. They could bribe the bursar and put a fake certificate in the system, right? I mean, it doesn't eliminate the problem; it just kicks it back a level.
Well,
anyway, we're getting way too much into there. Maybe we'll see if Tom's criteria can help us track this out there. All right. Did you have something a link to share, Tom, or are we just going to deal with it next week?
Yeah, I did send you the full set with the detail, and I also sent the link to the resilience thing I'm writing.
All right, I'll add that to the show notes, and we will pick this up in August. I think I'll be back from vacation by then. It'll be close to the time kids' school starts.
What are you going to do for vacation, if we can ask?
It's not much of a vacation. My wife has a continuing education event out in Tahoe. And so it's a working vacation for her. It'll probably be a working vacation for me, but at least we'll be dragging the kids away from the house for a while.
Okay. My vacation, Ernest didn't see this. This is the Oslo Fjord.
Oh.
And my vacation is sit and write books, about 5 of them every fall, at the Oslo Fjord summer cabin.
Yeah, I think we saw this last year. I think we've been doing this
every
for
year.
now.
I've had it 25 years.
Wow.
Or since 1993. Well, that's more. Yeah.
All right. Nice. Cheers, everyone.